Okay, today we are going to talk about urine analysis. Okay, so urine analysis. Importance of urine analysis is that it can detect those diseases which pass unnoticed. There are no much symptoms, or even there are symptoms which cannot be evaluated from other investigations like blood investigations. So it idea of especially urinary tract infection. Urinary tract infection can be acute or chronic. It can be upper urinary tract infection or lower urinary tract infection. Am I audible to everyone? All right. Then it also identifies or recognizes or diagnoses varieties of renal diseases. Like we said, in nephrotic syndrome, there will be proteinuria. So proteinuria meaning it is getting secreted in urine. So protein detection in urine can help diagnosis nephrotic syndrome. Similarly, hematuria. So detection of RBC in urine can help detecting nephritic syndrome, isn't it? Then acute renal failure. How will we diagnose acute renal failure? By estimating the 24-hour urinary sample by demonstrating the oliguria and then urea, nitrogen, etc. Similarly, in multiple myeloma, which is a hematological disease, okay, what is the importance of urine analysis in multiple myeloma? Akriti? No idea. Okay, anyone who can say what is the importance of urine analysis in multiple myeloma, which is a hematological malignancy? It is
Jones protein like casting also, ma'am.
yes. Who spoke? I couldn't see.
Dipesh.
Okay, Dipesh, good. So there is Baines-Jones proteinuria. Okay, Baines-Jones proteinuria that is seen in this multiple myeloma, and this can help in detecting and further evaluating the case of multiple myeloma. Now, before understanding going to urine analysis, we are supposed to know urine composition. This lecture is important theoretically as well as practically, because in your exams, in your final, in your semesters, we give 50 marks urine analysis, and varieties of questions are asked apart from the practical aspects. Okay, so this is very important chapter that includes theoretical component as well as practical component. So urine composition, as I said, urine is ultrafiltration of plasma, isn't it? Plasma, whatever is absorbed in plasma, then it is filtered, and after getting filtered again and again and again, what the things which are excess in amount, which is not required by body, are excreted through urine. Now, all of us, when we pass urine, we can see that it is almost watery. We cannot identify any solid particles, isn't it? It means it has 95% of water and 5% solid material. That is quite dissolved. All right. So urine is the end product of metabolism that is carried out by, it is end product of metabolism that is carried out by large number of cells, billions of cells. Okay, there are glomerular cells, isn't it? And it results in urinary output. So what is the normal amount of urinary output? It is 1 to 1.5 liter per day. That should be normal urinary output. When the urinary output is less than 500 ml, in some book it says 500 ml or 400 ml in certain books, it is called oliguria, means urine is reducing. Okay, if it is less than 50 ml, then we call it anuria. Okay, total loss of urine water, though there is 50 ml. All right. So almost all substance that is found in urine also find in the blood in different concentration, and those same blood components are excreted in the urine. Apart from that, urine may also contain, in some pathological condition, urine may also contain some formed elements. Formed elements meaning certain 3D structures or certain structures like cells, cast, crystals, mucus, bacteria, even in the infection. All right. Clear? So urine is ultrafiltration of plasma, which is almost watery, 95% water and 5% of solute. Now in that 5%, see what is the composition. only small component. The major component is urea. That's why it is called urine, and it smells like urea. Okay, if you have seen the fertilizer urea, then you can compare that. It has similar smell. So 95% water, 2% urea, that is 97, and in remaining 3% are ammonia, sulfate, phosphate, chloride, magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, creatinine. Okay, the least amount is of magnesium, isn't it? So all these components are there in urine. Now I hope you are aware of urinary tract. The anatomy of urinary tract, it constitutes kidney, which is a paired organ, ureter, which is a paired organ. Okay, then there is a bladder, which is a singular organ. There is a sphincter in the bladder which opens into the urethra. So finally urine is passed through urethra. So these are the same slides what I just talked. So you can see we just talked, so no need of noting this slide. Okay, there is importance of urine analysis in detecting varieties of diseases that can be renal diseases or some other metabolic diseases. Okay, great. So urine composition means 95% of liquid and 5% of solid. Normal urinary output is 1 to 1.5 liter per day, and in pathological condition we may see cast, crystals, mucus, bacteria, etc. So this is the picture. Slide change now. You can see the picture of urine. So 95% is water and only 5% is solute, in which 2% is urea. Majority is urea and remaining is other component. So I am changing the slide again. Hope it is changed. Is urinary tract taught in anatomy? Alright. So you can see kidney, ureter, bladder. This anatomy you must be knowing. Now see here, the slide changed, right? You can see kidney and glomeruli and all tubules. Okay. So kidney as proper has a parenchyma which is divided into outer component, which is a thin rim, is cortex, and a triangular or pyramidal shape structure known as medulla, and that medullary component is renal pyramid. Okay, this renal parenchyma opens into renal pelvis, which is continuation of ureter. Okay, so we sometimes ask what is the lining epithelium of pelvis. Can anyone say?
Urothelium.
Yes, ureter and pelvis both are lined by transitional epithelium, which is known as urothelium, while kidney is a solid structure. There is no lining, there is parenchyma, and that parenchyma is composed of glomeruli and tubules. So here you can see a single nephron. The unit of urinary renal parenchyma is nephron. In the single nephron there is Bowman's capsule. Okay, then followed by proximal tubule, distal tubule, loop of Henle, proximal tubule, loop of Henle, and then distal tubule, and then it ends in the collecting duct. Okay, you can see the magnified view. Just below the Bowman's capsule, you can see the glomeruli, which is tuft of arteries, has efferent and afferent component. Okay, and before going into collecting duct, there are proximal tubules, loop of Henle, which is thin loop. At the loop, the thickness of the tubule decreases. There is thin loop of Henle. So while drawing this picture, you have to be cautious. Okay, the ascending and descending tubules are thicker, wider, while the loop is narrower. So, and these vessels are supplied by renal artery and renal vein. Clear? Now, the formation of urine has 3 stages: filtration, reabsorption, and secretion in this above structure. Okay, there is filtration, there is reabsorption, and ultimately secretion. Can you see this slide? Formation of urine. The heading formation of urine. Alright, now what is filtration? The first process is filtration, that is physiology part, and physiology has also taught if renal endocrine is going on there. So it is the first process. Okay, and 20% of the fraction of colloidal osmotic pressure, 50% of the plasma volume passed to the kidney in the filtration fraction, As the blood passes through glomeruli, much fluids with useful substance. Okay, when blood passes through kidney, many useful substances like water, sodium, chloride, glucose, along with waste product like urea will pass in the tubules. For our metabolism, we don't need urea in our blood. So urea has to be filtered and go to urine. Okay, so this in the filtration process, we say glomerular filtration, and the rate of glomerular filtration, normal rate of glomerular filtration is 125 milliliter per minute. That is 180 liter per day. So this is also a numerical MCQ. You are supposed to know that normal GFR in per minute it is 125 ml, and in per day it is 180 liters per day. Now the normal blood volume is 3.5 to 5.5 liters, isn't it? You have idea of that? Normal blood volume. So up to 5.5 liter blood is normal. Now if the blood is 5.5 liter, how come there will be 180 liter per day filtration? Isn't it? Because blood gets filtered in the renal parenchyma. It means the 5 liter blood goes multiple times. Yes? How many time it has to go? Almost 40, 38, 39, 40 times depending upon the blood volume. It has to go in the process of filtration. So if 200 liters of filtrate enter the nephrons each day, only 5 liters or 5.5 liters of blood goes many times. Okay, many times it enters the kidney in one day, and up to 180 liters to 200 liters, and only 1 to 1.5 to 2 liters of urine is formed, isn't it? So where other volume goes? It means 99% of the water and solutes are reabsorbed. Okay, they re-enter or go back to the plasma. Slide changed. In the nephron, there are different places for absorption of different component, and this is important for pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, the physiological component. Okay, there is role of hormone and things. So sodium and water, they are absorbed in proximal tubule, then they are absorbed in distal tubule, and in loop of Henle there is exchange. There is double-sided arrow, there is exchange. Reabsorption occurs in this collecting tubule also on the basis of ADH. Alright. Now next slide is reabsorption. Reabsorption means there is passage of fluid from renal tubule to the peritubular capillaries. Means the after ultrafiltration, the fluid is getting back to the peritubular capillaries. What is collected in collecting duct is to form urine, and what is not formed urine will go back to the blood vessel, that is peritubular capillaries. So the useful particles are reabsorbed from the proximal convoluted tubule and till the loop of Henle. 99% of the water filtered is reabsorbed by passive reabsorption. Glucose gets actively reabsorbed in proximal tubule, okay, according to the renal threshold. Alright. Normally there is no glucose in the urine. It gets all glucose gets reabsorbed until it crosses the renal threshold. Now what is the renal threshold of glucose? Anyone knows? It is 180 milligram per deciliter, and this is also important MCQ question. Renal threshold for glucose until if the blood sugar is more than 126 milligram per deciliter, it is hyperglycemia. But up to 126 to 179, glucose will not appear in urine in normal individual who is getting diabetes. Okay, once it goes beyond 180, then only glucose is seen in urine analysis. Means the early diabetes, there won't be glucose in urine, and only urine examination cannot identify diabetes. You have to do blood investigation. Alright. While in certain patients the renal threshold decreases. In some patients it is 150 milligram per deciliter because of the renal pathologies, but normal is 180 milligram per deciliter. Now secretion. See here, this picture show reabsorption. The previous picture was filtration, reabsorption, where sodium and potassium, they are getting absorbed in the proximal tubule up to loop of Henle. Now secretion. Secretion is just opposite, reverse of reabsorption. Whatever is reabsorbed, that went back to blood. Now what will be secreted in the collecting duct will form urine. It is the secretory material that forms urine. It is sometimes by active process and sometimes by diffusion. Now what are the components like hydrogen, potassium, ammonia? These are the principal particles that is excreted by kidney. Hydrogen ions play important role in the acid-base balance. So this kidney is very important for acid-base balance, which is taught in physiology. Okay, now what are the things that controls urine excretion? There are two things. One is antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone. If there is antidiuretic means धेरै urine नगराउन दिने, धेरै absorption गराउने. Okay, if this ADH is deficient, then there will be polyuria. There will be more urine formation because there is no concentration of urine, and that condition is known as diabetes insipidus. So what we call diabetes as a layman in general is diabetes mellitus, which is different entity. Diabetes insipidus is a pathology that occurs because of the deficiency of antidiuretic hormone. Now how does this antidiuretic hormone acts? First, in kidney, renin converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Okay, angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 by angiotensin converting enzyme. So there is role of renin and ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme, to convert angiotensinogen to angiotensin 2, which is an active component, which is responsible for vasoconstriction. Same angiotensin 2, which is active form of angiotensin, balances aldosterone and vasopressin, that is antidiuretic hormone. Okay, and there is one insect. So aldosterone causes water and sodium retention. Aldosterone is responsible for retention of water and sodium. Okay, similarly vasopressin is also responsible for water retention by vasoconstriction. And these components are, if you understand this physiology, you can understand the treatment of hypertension also. We control blood volume by this balance of acid, base and water by giving all these medications that inhibit. Suppose aldosterone antagonist we give in hypertension, because the function of aldosterone is to retain water. If water is retained, more blood volume will be formed and there will be hypertension. So aldosterone antagonist is given. Similarly, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors are given. If ACE is absent, there will be no conversion of angiotensinogen 1 to 2 and there will be no vasoconstriction effect. Now I am changing the slide. See your slide is changed or not. This is renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. There is close relation of liver, lung, kidney in this enzyme. ACE, the enzyme ACE is formed in the surface of pulmonary and renal endothelium. Okay, while angiotensinogen is formed in liver, and this angiotensinogen is converted to angiotensin 1 and 2 from renin. Okay, and angiotensin converting enzyme. Renin is formed in kidney while ACE is formed in both lung and kidney. Now this converts angiotensinogen 1 to 2. Renin converts angiotensin 2, angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 will get converted to angiotensin 2 by converting enzyme. Okay. Now this angiotensin 2 has many activities, starting from sympathetic activity, means you must be knowing sympathetic and parasympathetic activities, tubular reabsorption of sodium, water, chloride, potassium, isn't it? Potassium excretion, chloride resorption, and water retention. Okay. It promotes further aldosterone secretions. It causes arterial vasoconstriction and raises the blood pressure. Alright. Then in pituitary it promotes ADH secretion and it has many effects. We will also be studying in pharma. Now urine analysis proper. Okay, in urine analysis, one of the concerned thing is collection of sample. How do we collect urine sample? So the specimen must be collected in a very clean, dry and disposable container. That should not be the reusable container. The container must be properly labeled with the name of the patient, date and time of the collection, and the label should be applied to the container and not to the lead, because lead may get exchanged while doing urine analysis. It should be mentioned in the container. So when you are submitting, collecting, you are asking someone to collect, then you have to take care of all these matters, that how it should be properly labeled. And it should be delivered to laboratory as early as possible. Many laboratory has got the toilet for the patients. They give the container, ask the patient to submit the urinary sample just there on, okay? And it should be tested within 1 hour. Standing sample has degenerative changes. It should be, if it is not being able to transported or evaluated within 1 hour, then it should be refrigerated, okay? Or there should be some preservative. The different preservatives are formalin, toluene, boric acid, thymol, etc. Now what happens if we don't process the urinary sample within the given stipulated time? Many changes occurs in non-preserved, like there is transformation of urea to ammonia, so pH is increased. Now what is the normal pH of urine? Anyone? What is the normal pH of urine? What is the pH reaction of urine?
Slightly acidic.
Okay, it is slightly acidic, means it is non-alkaline. But if ammonia is formed, it becomes alkaline. The pH will be increased, okay? Similarly, there is decreased glucose. Even if there is renal excretion of glucose, the glucose will be decreased because of glycolysis. Or if there is UTI, it will be utilized by the bacteria. There can be decreased level of ketones, okay? Bilirubin will be lost to exposure to light. I hope you all know that bilirubin is very photosensitive and it gets lost to light. How to remember bilirubin is photosensitive? Because we give phototherapy to newborn who develops neonatal jaundice. Do you have idea of that? All the discharged baby after hospital, after delivery, they are asked, the parents are asked to keep the baby for morning sun, isn't it? Keep babies in sun exposure in the morning hours. If there is at all bilirubin because of prematurity, then it gets broken down, isn't it? The bacteria increases in the standing sample, okay? There will be turbidity caused by bacteria and the morphose. There will be disintegration of the cast, okay? The nitrite due to bacterial reduction, and there will be change in the color. Now, what types of specimen can be taken? Specimen can be random specimen whenever the patient reached hospital, submitted the specimen, or it can be first morning sample, okay? It can be 24 urine collection. A special container is given to collect 24-hour urine. It can be postprandial sample, just like blood after 2 hours of food. It can be clean catch sample. Mid-stream urine means there is no lubrication with the urethra. As soon as the urine is passed, the first voided sample is left. The stream is stopped for a while, okay, by contracting the urethral sphincter, and the second stream of urine in 3 hours. First discard, second collect in the container, and then keep passing on urine. This is called mid-stream urine, and this is most sensitive sample. Then catheterized urine, okay, from the urethral catheterization or suprapubic aspiration or catheterization of urine. Most authentic sample supposed is suprapubic catheterization, okay? Now in female, especially in the female patient, clean catch sample, that is mid-stream urine is very, very important because there is chance of contamination, okay? In male, the sample can be collected properly, isn't it? This is suprapubic sample where a catheter or series is inserted by cleaning and disinfecting that portion of the skin, and a needle is inserted directly into the bladder and sample is collected. In very sensitive cases, we have to do this. Now, what is the timing? This timing will be important in collection of urine. It is the first morning void. After sleeping overnight, the first morning void is most concentrated with acidic pH, and there are formed elements like cast. Okay, so this first morning void is very important for routine examination, for fasting glucose, for protein, nitrite, even pregnancy test, for cellular elements, isn't it? And for the bacteriological analysis. So preferred is first morning mid-stream urine sample. Okay. Now, in case of random specimen, it can be collected any time, okay, and can be given for routine examination if first morning sample is not possible. Alright, yeah, because you cannot collect the urine in any container. This should be proper container, which is usually available in hospitals, laboratories, or pharmacies. And if after reaching hospital, if you need to give your sample, okay, then you can give random sample. Then postprandial specimen, which are collected 2 hours after a meal in the afternoon, especially the person who has got insulin therapy, monitoring, or urinobilinogen estimation. Then 24-hour urine sample. In this, first urine is discarded in the morning. Then a 2-liter bottle with tight cap is used, and whole day and night urine is collected. Next day, first urine in morning is also collected. Suppose the collection is started from today, so first morning sample of today is discarded. However, tomorrow's first morning sample is collected. This is preserved at 4 to 6 degrees during the collection. Means while collecting, it should not be kept just like that. It should be refrigerated. Usually it is done in hospitalized setup, so refrigeration is done. After collection, immediate transportation to lab is done. The sample is thoroughly mixed, and a portion of whole sample, means it is not that the 24-hour urine, that is 1 liter, 2 liter, is sampled. It is after mixing the entire sample, a portion of sample is used for the quantitative estimation of varieties of things like proteins, hormones, and many other things. Now, method of collection, as we discussed, it can be mainstream urine or clean catch specimen or catheter specimen, and in infants there can be suprapubic aspiration. All right, and we also said what are the changes. There can be pH increase, formation of crystals because of precipitation. Okay, there will be loss of glucose, disintegration of cellular elements, and proliferation of the bacteria. All right. So test to be done within 1 to 2 hours. Otherwise, it should be refrigerated between 4 to 6 degrees. Temperature for only maximum 8 hours. Okay, or it should be kept with the preservatives like formalin. Now, urine analysis proper is divided into macroscopic, chemical, and microscopic examination. Macroscopic means gross. It is the direct visual observation of the urine. We note the volume of the urine, the color, the clarity, or the cloudiness. Okay, the color, clarity, or the cloudiness. So normal urine is usually clear to pale yellow. If it is more concentrated, I find it is not normal. Is the slide changing? And keep on speaking. I don't know whether you are hearing your.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Pale yellow or clear to clear is normal urine macroscopy. Now you see normal urine and compare with abnormal urine. Here the one is very concentrated, the upper one picture, the lower one is turbid. There must be many pulses, and the another is hematuria. There are 3 types of urine. Okay. Now the urine concentration depends upon the hydration status, and we chart it as 1 for clear, 2 for light yellow, 3 for yellow, dark yellow, 4 and 5 we give like that. And we ask the patient to consume water and then resample. Okay, resample because there can be lack of hydration and we mistakenly interpreted something else. So that is indicator. All right, and there are varieties of things that is noted in deep stick examination and indicates, like if there is leukocyte. Okay, if there is negative leukocyte, no problem. If it is more than 10 WBCs, or 0 to 3 is normal. If it is more, then UTI is suspected. All right, similarly, there is no blood, pH is acidic, there is no protein normally, urobilirubin is only less than 1 milligram per deciliter, and if it is more, it is suggestive of liver disease. Similarly, ketone is 0, bilirubin is 0. Glucose, depending upon the condition like pregnancy or certain physiological condition, 0 to 15 milligram per deciliter is considered normal, but in non-diabetic patient, even a 1 milligram per deciliter is abnormal. Okay. Now, routinely in laboratory we do deep stick test. Do you have idea of deep stick test? Have you seen the deep stick strip, or have you seen in your family any diabetic using the deep stick? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Okay, deep stick is a strip and that strip is labeled as different colors. Okay, different colors. This different color is given in the bottle, and the strip is plain. Okay, and when it is dipped in urine, different color appears depending upon the components present in the urine. All right, so urine dipstick is a narrow plastic strip which has several squares of different colors attached to it. Each small square represents a component of test used to interpret urine analysis. The colors which is generated by each strip are visually compared against the range of colors on that chart. You can see the chart in the right above, and the entire strip is dipped in the urine sample and color changes in each square are noted. So this is a bottle of dip strip. Okay, you see the different colors are given for different taste, and this is the strip which has generated the color. In this picture, you can see the lower portion, the strip is given 1, 2, 3, 4 strips are there. Yes. So by this test, actually, we do non-specific urine analysis. But for students, for medical students, we do proper laboratory examination, like macroscopic examination, including color, clarity, odor, volume, specific gravity, and pH. The different color says different things, like concentration of urine or pH or metabolic activity, or whether if it is quite red but it is not hematuria, then there is dietary intake of peat. A certain drugs like rifampicin gives orange-like color. Okay, rifampicin is a anti-tubercular drug which on intake can give reddish urine. Even iron, if someone is taking iron, you see the urine color is darkened. Okay, if the urine is colorless, then you can see, think of high fluid intake or use of diuretics or diabetes mellitus, insipidus, or alcohol ingestion. At the same time, if dark yellow means there is dehydration or low fluid intake, or there is dehydration by excessive sweating or burn or fever. And yes, loss of carrot intake can give orange urine. Okay, similarly, certain analgesic like pyridium gives dark orange urine. Antibiotic which is used against E. coli in urinary infection can give dark yellow urine. All right. Similarly, hepatitis and jaundice can give yellowish urine. So all yellowish urine are not jaundice. Okay, layman used to think that, or even now think, if the urine color is darkened, whether I'm getting jaundice. So you have to rule out other causes like dehydration, food, different types of foods, okay, and drugs. After ruling out all those things, only one can think of jaundice. Now in jaundice, what happens if there is bilirubin? The urine appears yellowish green. There is greening hue. Okay, if it is bluish green, means it is pseudomonas. There is greenish. We say blue green, but more of greenish color, pseudomonas infection. Okay, brownish yellow, a more darker yellow than it is hepatitis or obstructive jaundice. All right. So by urine color only, in previous days when there was no dipstick test, there was no proper lab, the physician used to diagnose the patient on the basis of history. What is the history, whether they are taking some drugs or some fruits, specific fruits, or dehydration or like that, history, and by macroscopic urine examination they could say a lot about the disease. So this is the way medicine has evolved. Medicine has not evolved ready-made from varieties of investigations. It is from macroscopic examination many things could be estimated. Similarly, if there is reddish urine, then there can be gross hematuria. If it is pinkish, there can be microscopic hematuria or hemoglobinuria. Okay, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria is a hematological disease in which hemoglobin is lysed, RBC is lysed, hemoglobin is released, and urine appears pinkish. Patient ले कसरी complain गर्छ, मासु पखालेको जस्तो, है, चिकन मटन पखालेको जस्तो जुन कलर हुन्छ त्यस्तो युरिन आउँछ भन्छ. So you have to suspect hemoglobinuria. Similarly, even in UTI, calculi, there can be reddish urine in the case of hematuria. Then menstrual contamination in female. And if there is painless hematuria, you have to think of kidney, bladder malignancies or tuberculosis of kidney or blood. Alright, so things that is responsible for hematuria. And dark brown color in malignant melanoma in nephritic syndrome. What was the color of urine in nephritic syndrome? In post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. What was the color of urine in post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis? Ayushman?
Red, I guess.
What kind of red is? There was typical word for that.
RBC cast and immature is in, so it must be red, I guess.
No, I'm just talking about macroscopic color. So you have neither concentrated in post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis nor in
Smoky color.
yes, smoky color or cola color. We say smoky or cola color. All right, these are very, very important things by which you diagnose, you appear for exams, you increase your general knowledge about your text or your chapter. All right, so it is smoky urine or cola color urine. And typically black urine is seen in a disease of tyrosine metabolism. So these are very many teachers, all of us are very fond of asking such type of question, starting from basics to clinical. Okay, what is the importance of black urine, what is the importance of red urine, what is the importance of pink urine, dark yellow urine, and to be a better clinician you must know. Okay, when you will be an intern or medical officer, you cannot rely for everything for investigation. You will be posted in some periphery. What will you do? There is no lab, so you have to do it yourself. You have to ask the patient to collect the sample in the container. You have to examine yourself, and many of your seniors are doing, okay, who are from MOE and are posted at different places. They are doing all those investigations. There is no laboratory at many places. So this is the chart for physical examination about color. Okay, what happens, what this gives you idea for red, brown, black, brown, yellow, greenish, yellow foamy, okay, orange color urine or milky white urine. Yes, milky white. You cannot imagine that urine can be milky white. Do you have any idea when does it occur? Anyone? Milky white urine, can anyone say? Yes, what is chyluria? Can you tell your friends what is chyluria? Okay, have you people heard of filariasis? What is the organism that causes filariasis?
Neisseria bancrofti.
Very good. In Neisseria bancrofti infection, okay, there is obstruction of lymph, isn't it? Lymph vessels. So lymph tissue get collected. Lymph is a just like blood or plasma. Lymph is a fluid, body fluid that gets collected and passed through urine. Okay, when there is involvement of venous system, and chyluria, whitish urine, milky white urine is seen in this condition of filariasis. Got it? Okay, so this was only macroscopy up to the color. Up to the clarity is physical examination color. Up to today's class ends here. We'll continue with the other features like appearance and others. Okay, transparency, whether it is transparent or translucent or turbid, like that. So we will talk in next class. Up to color, please come reading. I will ask question, and only if 50% of you have answered, then only we will continue the class. Otherwise, the class will be accepted as taken. Clear?